is source material. Like every time, every new artist, I'm going to say, I'm going to regard you. Like, who are you? What do you have to say right now? How can I help? Does that resonate? Do I feel like I understand it? And do I feel like I'm the person for it? Even just like the alchemy of the people you've gathered together. We're talking about bringing the people together. It's like, that's going to determine that whole thing. So if you're bringing me something, I'll take it. I love it. If it's nutritious, you know. Vibe is most of it.
Yeah.
Truly.
Vibe is everything, right? Yeah.
Truly.
That feels like a good jumping off point to talk about Moxie and kind of...
Vibe is on the throne.
Yeah, creating a vibe. And what was there something that you thought was missing out there in places you'd been, or something, or just something you hadn't quite found, or?
I'm sure that's true. I think I was also trying to center on what I loved, of like, what do I know works, even like physiologically. And we have a lot of literature on what works for humans to be. Are they critical when they're less critical when they're not in limbic and are engaged with their body or something like that. So I try to like fix that in a whimsical way sometimes. So I'll like there's a hanging, there can be like a swing, kind of like a porch, one of the soft porch swings, or that's a hanging chair thing that I can put in the tracking room that's between the location of the vocal booth and the control room. So if someone's doing a vocal and they come back in, they almost always have to like touch it, play, like get in the swing, and they come back in, and I can usually get a really quick comp, and they're in a different part of their brain processing that that part actually can do creativity where limbic can't. And that's such a self-critical moment when you've done a vocal for like, if you ever listened to your own vocals soloed before it's been comped.
Yeah.
So let's just get there.
Yeah.
And in that moment, going into a room of other people who have just heard your vocal soloed, it's just so exposed. And as much as you can make that, not in a false way, because that's a bummer too, and I've seen that happen, that's like misleading, like, it's great, and then like, this is terrible. But in a way that's like, we're making the best thing here. So come on in, and this is probably better than you think.
The swing, does it just kind of give them like a pause between, so they're not going like straight into like, don't know how that went. Okay, here we go, brutal, like, you know, or what's the thinking of kind of sort of?
Well, that's kind of like one of 15 things that do things like that, but it's kind of like if I can design the space where you're kind of stumbling along things in your path like that, where it's just, they say engaging with your body pulls you out of limbic, and you can just more connect to, you get more centered, and so you're not really critical. You can be objective of like, yeah, that sounds good, that sounds better than this other thing, and versus like you can just really get in your head and it goes off the rails of like nothing sounds good and this record is never gonna come out, and it's like, okay, that's not reality. Come back to reality with us.
Yeah.
And just having things where you snap out without having to overthink that moment or talk about that moment is so much better than making that a really light lift as much as possible is handy. So
I never really thought of it that way before, but in Studio 2 at Abbey Road, the control room's on a different level, right? And you've got these stairs you have to go up and down for a playback and all that sort of stuff. And I never thought of it that way before, but I guess that's doing an element of that, like climbing 100%. And going up and down those stairs.
And as soon as, that's so funny, because as soon as I like started designing Moxie and Google SketchUp, and then took it to my, draftsman friend who could make it real and structurally sound. And when people first walked in after it was built, somebody was like, "This is like Abbey Road."
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I was like, "It is." It was like, you couldn't have said anything better to me in that moment. But it's because there are those steps there. And I think that totally does something where you're, it just gets you back in your body and out of your head.
That's very
super
cool.
Interesting.
That's very cool. And then, so if people aren't familiar with Moxie, and you talk us through like, because you've got different rooms with quite unusual names. One's called the gym, right? Is that
Yeah.
and things like that. Talk us through like, if you're walking through the front door, what do you see and why?
I love that. You see a chandelier I made and another like piece of art on all very like tactile handmade things. Some kind of statement going into big room mazy things. Part of a home and part of a studio kind of thing. So that's kind of the when you walk in the front door. But really it's also it's on 20 acres and I think all of those things are a part of the why of I want people to feel at home. There's it's like residential. So you can bring your people, which really helps. It really helps whenever even if you're working with new people to have some sort of like totem blanket, like whatever you need to feel that there's a Bambi leg moment anyway, and having that be a little more secured. Some people like cooking meals in the kitchen. Like I had an artist that was like it's so many decisions and such a long process that you want to just have answers and wrap it up and it'd be great. And she really found comfort in making this dish of her grandmother's. And she was like, I make it start to end. I'm going to follow the recipes I know. And it was so like comforting and sanity restoring. So to be able to like half listen to what I'm doing in the control room, I think that's an added calming effect that a place like that has, that you can bring in your people. And because the fact is, like, all that stuff is the getting to the work of making the thing. But it can take up so much of the time and headspace and attention just getting to a place where you can make the thing. So if I can get there quickly, we can get there quickly as collaborators, then it's like, okay, now what do we want to make? We've assembled the Avengers. Whenever I'm making a band, I'm always like, oh my gosh, this person and this person.
Yeah.
I can see what they're going to do together, and it's delicious. So when you get people together, it's like, let's go,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're in studios day in, day out, but I guess it can be an intimidating environment, right? To some.
So much, especially when you're coming in to make a record.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it can be like, you haven't put anything out in 10 years. You haven't put anything out in 4 years. And artists have to come up with at least like, what, 40 grand to do something by themselves. And imagine having to raise that every 4 years in addition to all your living expenses. Like, that's what artists have to do. And then, I don't know, there's just so much like creative risk and financial risk and identity involved around what you're creating, what you have to say now, how it matches up to the market and what's hot right now or what's attractive to people or what you think is. That's a lot to be thinking when you have like 7 days to feel your best physically and deliver whatever that is. That's intense.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is, yeah.
Like, bunch of thoughts off the back of that. I mean, one of the things is that I think it's no coincidence that you often have artists and if they get to a really esteemed point in their career, very often they will try and build their own rooms or own their own studio and create a safe space, and that's the place they record. And they might be the most like, think of like Neil Young or Mark Knopfler or whatever. These guys don't seem like shrinking violets. They seem to exude confidence and assurity, but it's like, but then there's a big part of that. I'm creating a place where I feel I can be creative. I don't think it can be underestimated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also very of this time.
Yeah.
Like we can make our own terrariums and, visit each other's, which is cool. I'm sort of like at the threshold in terms of generation. It's been interesting to work with a lot of engineers who are, in older generations and had a much more capital E engineer background and the job of engineer or producer is very differently described quickly, decade to decade, differently can be. And that's unique, I think. And so I often come up against like, oh, I have a different idea about how records are made than you. So it's interesting. I had like an inbox in college, I guess, and I was like making stuff in the basement, and we would make stuff for fun. We made I made an EP with my friends and in the car on spring break. You know, it was it was like very mobile versus I remember doing a record with a band who was cutting tape in 80s and so it was like, can we keep this one? Or comping is very differently done. And it's so interesting to come up against those where I'm like, oh, I don't have a problem with all the nimble ways we can move digital. I didn't have to make that transition. That wasn't a hard transition for me. So I don't have some of that baggage, but I love everything that's great about how we got here. So let's bring the best of both of those things. It's helpful to think about signal flow as it is on consoles. It's helpful to think about, let's just take the best of both. And I think we are starting to, but
yeah.
I was just going to say, in terms of like, there's that, for lack of a better word, emotional, creating a place where like someone can cook a meal is amazing, in the studio. But the other kind of tangible ways that you make that a place for creativity, I mean, we're just across the street from Blackbird, which is like, their whole thing is like, we got every microphone, we got every piece of outboard gear. Do you think about, I'm interested in when you're building a studio, how do you curate that? Like, how do you decide, okay, this is the desk we're going to put in here, or we're going to get these amps, or maybe we'll leave, this organ in the hallway and maybe someone will come and play, like, yeah. Can you talk us through some of the thinking in that as well? Like,
totally. I will say I feel very lucky actually to live in this city because there are people like that who I can call and be like, I need 16 1973 API, whatever. And they're like, okay, it'll be there in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And like from 3 different places. So like that takes some of the pressure off in a way. Like I have an artist friend who was like, you got to get a tape machine. And I was like, totally, that would be cool. Also, with the resources I have and with the like skills I have, it's easier for me to have someone deliver it, run it, use it, and I don't maintain it. So like those are very handy things to be able to call people and do. But in terms of how the place is set up, I always think about like, and what gear is in what place is what observe the creatures and how they move, and then put things in place where everybody always ends up doing this. And I'm like, okay, well then let's set up the thing and be ready when they always want to do the thing. So I've got 16 tie lines in the kitchen great room area. And I'm like, okay, well, let's keep a stereo and mono up for that. And that's made, like there's people like beating on the counter, and that made a record.
So both directions, right? Yeah. So it's not just, you're not just monitoring in there. You got it set up.
Totally.
So, yeah. Nice.
Because if it's people that are making the thing, I just want to capture, the somebody said anthropologically, I just want to capture them doing the thing.
Hop.
Yeah.
I read that.
Where I was like, I didn't, until I read that, I hadn't heard that application, and I was like, oh, I feel so seen. As like the only non-music like straight job I ever had was a reference librarian in like special collections. So like I'm totally into that part of it, of like being able to look back through history and see I don't know, just like all these great like of course I'm like I forget every instrument that's ever existed, but like all the artists who are representative of their time and of their culture. And we see like 70s soul, and I love to think about the context of what's happening in time as people try to say what they have to say in that moment. And so it's interesting thinking about doing that now. And then you start thinking about all the stuff you make as discography and your catalog that you leave behind, or that you or that people look up and see and get a sense of who you are based on that list. And so if that happens, like, oh, that's a very different approach than my day-to-day view of sessions and gigs and stuff like that. So I tried to kind of like keep that stuff in mind. But the same thing for instrumentation of gear, like honestly, a bunch of that stuff I had since high school. Like we were
Right.
just talking about before, like I have this like classical nylon con that I think the story is my mom sold her clarinet to buy it for my dad because he wanted it.
Oh,
And there's a picture of me when I'm like, probably like 4 or something, like rock and roll stance, Bugs Bunny sunglasses with that guitar that's now in my studio and sounds great. And I track with it, which is so meta. But it's just like, if you're a hoarder and keep things and take care of your things and you did organize it well, people let you have a bunch of stuff.
yeah.
So whenever I had a big space, I just took all my tons of stuff and like arranged it. And because I'm a player, I come from like an instrumentalist background into recording. I want to be able to play all the instruments and not have a engineering roadblock in my way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll get that for you this evening. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We could totally hook that up tomorrow. You're like, I want to do it now. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's interesting that thing about the guitar coming from your parents, because I think there's another interesting parallel, which is like I know that you talked about on Working Class Audio. Listen to that interview, and you talked about the records, Jimi Hendrix and Neil Young, Harvest Moon, and things like that, and that was informative. I wonder if there's also that thing where you get parents who push music on people, and also as a producer, you can kind of push ideas on an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also that kind of parents, like certainly my dad, I never had guitar lessons, but he was just playing guitar all the time. We just always had music in the house.
Yeah.
So you kind of, you go to other people's house and you're like, oh, you didn't have music in the house all the time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's quite interesting. It's like maybe creating a space where you're sort of subtly leaving things around and going, I mean, yeah, you can grab that guitar if you want.
Totally.
It's
Totally.
like
It's just like exposing and letting you kind of like find yourself in it and find where you fit. And music even kind of does that in a meta way of like you hear a thing and nobody around you could be saying that thing, but it's like, oh my gosh, how's this person read my diary or whatever? And you could be living in some small town in Oklahoma, no offense, Oklahoma, but like, and then have an imagination that there is a world outside of, that you could like move to New York City. That's such a powerful song thing that it's just such an identity spark that all you have to do is like put the record on and somebody's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. How kind of directional are you with that kind of stuff? So, because I'm thinking like, you talked about creating this environment where even the kitchen is kind of connected. If someone wants to sort of lay down a vocal in there, but do you have your own philosophy on like, look, I can do 3,000 tracks on Pro Tools and endless comping, or do you have a feel for like how the best records are made, or like a preference? What does that look like, and does that bleed into Moxie as well? Or
That's an interesting way to ask that. How the best
I
records are
butchered
made.
it, sorry.
No, there's a lot there, so you have to like parse out. And what that brings up for me is source material. Like every time, every new artist, I'm going to regard you. Like, who are you? What do you have to say right now? How can I help? Does that resonate? Do I feel like I understand it? And do I feel like I'm the person for it? Like I'd like to ask all those questions if I can.
Do you ever have a situation where you think to yourself, maybe I'm not the right person
Totally.
to do this? Okay.
Totally. I have been asked to do a couple times, like do a record and suggested somebody else. And they were like, are you seriously suggesting somebody else? But I think it's because of that, because I was like, maybe we could do something, but like I'm this type of producer and we could fight for a year and a half and then make something. Or we could wait 10 years and then make the like thing that our Venn diagram overlap, we are capable of making together. Or it's like, you're interested in making this kind of thing and I'm not, I mean, it can be a ton of things. Even like you want a ton of time to make micro decisions, and this is a record that you're going to be putting together over 7 years and off and on or whatever, which is very different than I've never done a record before. I'm a young artist. I want to do 10 songs in 5 days. That's a totally different lift for me as a producer. So like, I'm just like, we can go into why, but
And if you had,
even just explaining how records are made is a whole lift. But you know what I mean? Like I keep running into like we can get through it, then it's like, oh, actually these changes that you're wanting to make are best made at this other point in the production process. But this is new information for you.
And vice versa. Yeah, you speak to mix engineers and even mastering engineers, and they get notes, and they're like, asking me to change the song.
Which is also like, goes back to the what is an engineer and producer, because all the jobs smoosh together right now, sort of in history. It's a lot of people, all the roles just kind of like got tossed up in the air, and everybody's talking about going back to the best record and regarding the person. Everybody's doing that on their teams too, of, okay, I particularly need someone to maybe the person has a moment that's for touring that's taking off, but they want to put together their business is too big for them to handle. They need admin. They need, whatever. You can now subcontract that out in a way. In the music business, historically, we haven't.
Right.
But I think even what managers are doing, what sometimes producers are doing the manager thing. Sometimes, it's just lawless out here, y'all.
Yeah. I mean, traditionally, like you had to go to a recording studio to make a recording, and then when you got there, you had the producer and they produced, then you had the recording engineer and they did the recording, and then it was all very regimented in a way, right? And
for a while, you didn't even pick your songs.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They were picked for you, and
wow.
I've even heard stories of the band weren't even allowed to go into the control room. You stay in the recording area.
Crazy.
The production room is for the producer. The control room is for the producer and the engineer, and you don't cross those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a moment where I got to work with the Indigo Girls on a record, and they had worked with Peter Collins, who just recently passed, who was an incredible producer and guy, and but was very sort of more George Martin, more like old school English. He didn't touch the console. He didn't play. So I'm sure that was a really interesting transition for me coming in with my inbox and Farrell. I'm just like, I'm just so used to my peers not playing everything on the record and just putting together this collage of things. But the best thing I think is like, what does the artist experience? I think that's what I care most about is what's the artist experience like? How can I set them up to enjoy their vision, enjoy bringing their vision to life, and like make that as seamless as possible? If I need to bring in, and I mean, you're dealing with the full picture of their artist life, including their budget. So if they want to track quickly, I know certain players that are used to moving really quickly, or like that's a certain type of record. If you're working on the road, you are used to working at a certain pace. You leave other things on the floor when you do that. So for them, do they know that? Are they willing to make those trade-offs that you might only get 3 takes if you have feedback about something you don't like? Does the artist get that part of it? I want to know before we dive into like orchestrating this, because they're like, oh, well, I want it done fast, but I want to be a part of it. I'll get left out if I don't. I'm like, okay, well, we can do pre-production with those same people, or we can add weeks to the, there's like so many ways to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And I want to design that to support us as much as we can, because if our future selves don't design it, when we get there to that moment, like I usually find I will have wished for that support rather than like, you're going to have to order food. Are you like all those things of like my attention is already all over the place. I don't want that to get onto the artist. I don't want them thinking about it. And maybe they don't have a huge team, but we can figure out ways to let them have fun, let them say what they want to say, let them like be inspired by sounds. What records are you listening to? Like, I'm going to go ahead and have them dialed up. I'm going to go ahead and patch in some, Eventide phase thing. And when you get in the vocal booth, I'm going to be like, check out Not B. Or, whatever it is. And then it's like joy and efficiency.
Yeah.
It's sometimes hiding things, right? It's just like things happening. It's just heard more than one person say, oh, as far as they're concerned in the booth, it's seamless. They don't know. And that's quite a big thing sometimes.
Totally.
What you hide from the artist through that experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't know that experientially from being in sessions, that's kind of another thing right now where how to learn that etiquette and how different artists like to be, like who is keeping that line of communication. Because you don't want to be too silent that you finish a take and it's like everybody's in a room. They could be laughing at you. We don't know because it's silent. Like that's the other extreme of like, the producer with the line to them. How are they talking them through that moment? And the engineer maybe silent.
Countless stories of people trying not to get fired or being the third person in that room. Might be the tracking engineer, or it might be the producer, and often it's the intangibles. It's like they couldn't hang, they couldn't just be that person, Rafa,
pivot or whatever it is.
Yeah, Rafa Sardina speaks really like abusingly about, surviving with James Brown and people like that, and just
especially when we're talking like historical. I think that was totally from what I hear, like surviving is the word.
Yeah.
There was like so that'll be interesting to see how much we bring that kind of cutthroat thing to the sessions in the. Do you find that is still kind of like a way to get things done? Talking about the best way to make a record.
How do you mean? Sorry.
Of like what I know, James Brown was quite tough on his band, as I understand it.
Sure. Yeah.
And I've definitely I studied French horn. I've definitely had teachers who that is their style of tutelage of like. I remember having to play a section 7 times without mistake, or I'd had to start over.
Yeah.
Or miss one beat and you're fired. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, Mirek can definitely speak better to that than I can. But I mean, as to how much that's changed, I don't know.
I mean, it's one thing I've learned over the years is that there's no right or wrong way, and everyone's got a different style. I mean, for example, I was working with an artist a couple of weeks ago, and there was some noise in the room. And the artist was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's part of the sound. We're capturing this. It's there. Let's just get on with it." Whereas I know other artists or other engineers who would have been, "No, we really have to deal with the sound. It's going to be a problem." And
totally.
So for me, it's all about just reading the room, and just sometimes you just got to go with the vibe of what's in the room at the time, and be able to read the room. Be able to read people. There's this whole psychological side to it, which is just mind-blowing sometimes.
Also, we were saying vibe is king.
Yeah.
I think that is also giant in the room, like more than you think of, even just like the alchemy of the people you've gathered together. We're talking about bringing the people together. It's like, that's going to determine that whole thing,
Yeah, but you've worked with, the thing about like try not to get fired, try not to get kicked out of the session. But you've worked with Brandi Carlile and people like that. And not to get into a name dropping thing, but you worked with some serious artists.
She's a good combo of that, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like so determined, works so hard, has insane talent. Some people only have a couple of those things, but I just think she's so she never ceases to amaze me, like what she can make happen, and I'm just like regard. That's amazing.
That's funny you say that. Being a bit cheeky, but the Joni Mitchell thing is, yeah, that kind of speaks to that, doesn't it? It's like,
Incredible.
yeah, somehow. Can you talk about that at all, or is there stuff
I
coming
can talk about
down
just what I witnessed, but I like the way she kind of honors and connects and brings out her mentors. Like I do felt like Joni was far from us, and now she's here, and that's incredible. I got to see the Greek shows, and
exactly?
there's records coming out, and she seems like happy and engaged, and like I can't believe I'm alive at a time that's happening, and that's so cool to be able to like you did that. You did that. That's crazy.
I mean, it comes full circle though, doesn't it? Because I mean, it's like, okay, you might think of these people as like Joni's just like a giant, but then, you know, I'm sure everyone has those insecurities and like, okay, what's hot now and what's the thing? And like, you know, saw Bob Dylan talk about it, and he's like, talks about his early records, and he's like, I couldn't make that now.
Yeah.
I don't know who that guy was who made
Yeah.
those records. I can't do that. You know?
Which I think makes me think of relationship of your own craft and your own story and what you have to say with what you got in your gift bag and the marketplace and like what's happening right now and like where those meet. Because if you get too far into one or the other, you probably don't have the right speed to get over the crevasse that you're going to jump by being in this industry at all. You know, it's like you need to care about the songs if you're going to be a songwriter, but you could probably make some hits without caring about craft, you know, or you can care about craft and like never play your songs for anyone. And I don't know if that's sharing adequately with the world good things that we kind of need to share that kind of multiply when we share them. So I think I'm like, everybody clear out the hard drives now. I just think everybody's putting out everything and there's bots getting streaming numbers. I'm like, it's lawless. Like, think about now, why are you even doing this? I ask that question. I don't know if that's like too meta, but I get down to like, why am I doing this pretty frequently these days?
Okay.
No, but you know, the alternative is scarier, I think. To not ask that question, I think, is more frightening.
Right,
I think
to just go ahead.
You know, but yeah, just to kind of like, oh, I guess we're doing this now. You know, is not a solution, right?
And if you start with self-satisfaction, then all the other what seemed painful things are like ails about who gets it, who doesn't, what it does when maybe it's not successful now, maybe it blows up in 10 years, you don't know. And as soon as you can get to that's not my business, I think it's usually good because you're already counting it so much on the ticks that like be like, okay, I counted that, and also I like it, and this is what I have to say right now. But we have to like push through some stuff to get there, you know.
Yeah, where do you see now the role of the producer if it is, as you say, sort of lawless and everything's up for grabs? I mean, what is the role of the producer to protect the artist from that reality, or where do you see it?
I guess that would depend on if you have a long-term relationship with that producer, if you trust that producer. But they can maybe in that moment of while we're working on this project, I can translate maybe what the label's saying, what whoever's saying, and their vision for it. That can hijack an artist's ability to say what they have to say. Like there can be certainly business things that come in and put a ceiling on what could have creatively or sonically happened on that record. Like I've absolutely seen that happen. But that's,
But as much as things change, they stay the same. I mean, when Frank Sinatra was recording with full orchestras, the Stooges were not. So there's the Beatles had to follow up each album, right? Like it's still like, oh no, yeah, we've made Revolver.
Yeah.
Now we have to follow it up.
Yeah, the pressure.
Totally.
So as much as things change, it's kind of, it was ever thus, right?
And knocking on the ground level again of, we're just documenting you. We're just like, well, all of us gathered here. It's not actually, I was saying the other day, sometimes I walk in studios and feel like that I'm like hired to play on, that I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I'm here. I feel like an imposition immediately or something, because it's just so like intimidating or something that's grandiose or fancy or something. But I think if, it's all about the experience you want. And if you feel a part of that thing, really all I have to do is show up and be myself and try to, maybe I could just end there, like just show up and be yourself, because whatever you've learned on your instrument, whatever you've learned about compressors, about EQ, whatever you have to deal with also in the conditions of the day. There's some records that come out that, will have an opinion about. And I'm like, in actuality, I bet he didn't even get to hear that snare and they had to put it out.
Yeah.
Like there are times where it's like, it's not ideal in that moment all the time. You don't get to like baby things, but you still have to capture things the best you can. You still have to like use what you know about where to put the EQ, even if you have to make one swipe and guess, that it's 700 and probably not 100 or, whatever. I'm going to do the best I can and then let myself off the hook, because you can really like let one thing torture you and get hung up on a session. You have to like move quickly or going to like tank mentally.
I mean, there's so many options now as well. I think half the battle is about just making a decision at the end of the day, right? And just keeping things moving and flowing.
Yeah.
And not getting caught up on things and not overthinking things, maybe.
Yeah. And I bet that depends too on, are you by yourself making something? Are you with two people? Or do you have 8 people there?
So there's a lot of difference between making decisions against yourself and making decisions with other people, right? If you're on your own, you're kind of fighting against yourself sometimes.
Yeah, trying to get that objectivity.
Yeah, totally. You can really get lost in the sauce if you're by yourself. Versus like managing is more like when you have 8 people who all have different visions. And that is like when you've got to start like moving quickly, because bless the tracking engineers. We give them such a hard time. And like, I'm always like, if people knew all the things that you're managing in that moment of monitoring and all the inputs and all the things that could be going wrong at even in one input, every part of the connection and signal chain. But you have to like be the duck of like we're saying, like paddling underwater, but just like talk back like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Say yes and just fix it.
Yeah. What do you think about when people go back and try and fix it? You talked about like, every record is kind of a compromise, Paul McCartney did like Let It Be Naked, because he's sort of, and or like less controversially or less, but like there's a band I love called The Kills, and I saw they put out an album and it was like the Chad Blake mixes. And they done it sort of 10 years after the fact, maybe, on this album. What do you think about? Are you kind of like? Because I know some people, like my friend Nick Waterhouse, would say that was it. That was part of warts and all. That's what makes that record great. That was the lightning in a bottle, versus like, if we just had a little bit more time.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I would say both and, because I think that's true. I think that's what it was. You made a record. You took a picture of that moment in time with the, if you're in the 70s and you take a picture of something, later I'll be like, oh, that looks like 70s film, and contextualize it both within the medium and the subject and that thing. So I think I like that about records. I like that I'm like, leave it as is. That's what they made. It sounds crazy, and that's what it is. There's this one song that has like the splash cymbal is like 7 dB higher than everything else, the splash. And I'm like,
there's some 80s records where you're just like, oh, the huge snare.
Do I still listen to it,
such a good song, but the huge snare. Oh no.
And yet, does it break through your joy barriers? Does it bum you out too much to listen to it?
There are some records where I'm like, it's when you have artists whose careers have gone 40 years, and you see these moments where they were kind of like, maybe I need to sound like Nirvana. And you're like, no, you don't. Who's in your ear? Do your thing.
Totally. That's like marketplace over craft, I would say.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm not going to listen to and take a, it's like, it is risky thinking like, what I'm actually into is this like Polish folk station that I love on XM. Maybe they're, like in their second half of life, they found this thing. But actually, I bet if they like followed that weird thread, they might make some cool, unique Grammy winning thing, whatever. But I think that's the difference. If you feel like, okay, what's happening now? How can I be that? Then we don't even have you. We have you trying to be Marketplace, and you're not maybe good at Marketplace, maybe not good what we want right now,
From an artist's point of view, though, there's also that pressure of, or trying to remove yourself from that pressure of like, okay, I've made this great thing. Now I've got to try and recreate that next time and recreate that next time.
Yeah.
Versus trying something different, and not being afraid to try something different.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways of looking at it. I mean, my God.
And to your point about like, do we need this other mix of this thing of a different way to, or are we just like, beating a dead horse? Does this material or does this record have anything else in it? Sometimes I make records, I'm like, I could make 12 records from this session file or this doll, like this record file. I could split this 12 ways and it would be so interesting and I would love to do it and all the stuff. And there's some records where I'm like, it is what it is. And some I'm like, you're trying to get more money out of me by not giving me a new innovative thing and having somebody else do this thing to it. So that's like, that works itself out. But I personally am not, I'm into it. If you've got a reimagination of something, I did it before where we made 2 different versions of the record. And I'm like, both of these elements there's like sad, we did like a sad 808 bop, like a reflective thing. And then the other one was just like totally different, indie rock, Americana, whatever. And I think both of those are true. I think you could trace the lines back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Gabriel did that not so long ago, didn't he? Yeah, put out 2 mixes of the same album. Yeah, things like that.
And like have other people sing. I know that he does the
Dark
you
and
scratch
Light,
your back, I'll scratch mine. Like people sing his, like even that I'm like, oh yeah, this person singing it brings out this other flavor that I love. So if you're bringing me something, I'll take it. I love it. If it's nutritious,
I read you said like I guess I'm a good mechanic on Ferraris, which I loved. Do you see your role as kind of just being almost that reassurance on these people who are really at the top of their game and maybe just need reminding, and like just kind of need.
I naturally do that for sure. I love music not casually. It was kind of shocking for me to find out not everybody who does music for a living doesn't love music. I was like, wait, how did you get in?
It's wild.
It's wild.
How did this happen? Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've since opened my heart and I'm like, you love these other things too, and they're here. Namaste. But I like being over here because music is the coolest. I'm just like, I like want to stay connected to the part of me that is still geeking out about it and doesn't have to fight getting jaded because it's so like it's actively working to jade me every day. I can tell you by experience. It's wild, and because it's wild, like I have to protect it a little bit that way and make sure I stay like loving records and loving sounds and being inspired by those things.
What advice would you give to people like who are now, emerging artists and they've got to navigate TikTok or pick your poison Instagram or they're expected to be this kind of whole they've got to be like David Bowie 10 years in. That's how polished you got to be brand wise.
I would.
How do you stay sane and make great music?
Like I would say if an artist is feeling out of touch, I would be like, that is happening. And I would love to introduce a new market to your music, but not if you feel like you have to be something different. So how can you maintain yourself and what you have to say? And hire somebody. Don't feel like you have to do that. Like rearrange it. But I think that talking about the like Ferrari thing too is I have it must be a different part of me that's the fan part and the when I'm making something part, because I want to make something that we're both really into and proud of and achieves our goals. And so I can get really, I don't want to say serious about it. I can't get serious about it, but I take it seriously because I'm in a role that needs to take it seriously. And I feel that responsibility to you. So I want to rise to the level of how much I love your other stuff. And that's who I try to work with too, is like, so I think that helps to see that I'm not fanning out. I'm not going to flatter you. I love you. I like want the best for you. I'm like actually, which doesn't mean flattering you. That means like taking the best of what we have and making the best thing we can together, like I was saying. And I think that's just like what I got in my gift bag as a producer in some ways, because there are times when like I see peers of mine who are really great with the younger artists, and I think I can do that, but what the things that I find that are really helpful only get helpful in certain rooms. And so I'm trying to like get better at seeing what kind of artist I'm a good combination for and be helpful to them. And it usually starts with me just like being really compelled by what they make and inspired by like them making a career of it. And I don't know, I really like the collaboration part. So if somebody's down to work on that from that posture in that place, I'm like, oh, if we're facing this way and not like negotiating something, I feel like, oh, we can go far. I feel like there's nothing we can't do. And here I'm like, there's barely anything we can do.
Yeah. How far does because I was going to ask that collaboration, how far can that go? Because I was going to ask you, what if you're working with an artist and perhaps you think these songs aren't the strongest, or we've got 20 songs and we need to pick 10? Those really tricky moments. How do you?
They're never not tricky moments.
Right. Or you're just like, maybe we're not painting the Sistine Chapel today.
Totally.
Maybe we're kind of.
and I mean, that's definitely like, what is here for me to love? How can I love that? Know when we need to go back. I've definitely told people that are much more experienced than me to write more. But if I'm asking them to write more, it's not like I'm saying you're not a great writer. I believe you are like one of the best writers. Also, can you just write more of those great songs? Like that doesn't have to mean what you think it means. I just think for this piece, do we have the players we want to put on this play for this record? Do we have a good balance of these things? And so sometimes it's more pragmatic than it can seem to be, So like having some of those conversations and not heavy it too much, and also be like, this is my opinion. Like this is how I see, because of all the things, whatever amalgamation of stuff, this is my perspective, and that's all we have here. That's most of what I found out being a producer. And you can have, as an artist, I think I'm into keeping the artist's voice in that. We're saying that's not always been a place where artists can say it is going to be like that. But for me, that was important to kind of like, I even kind of let them, if I have had, I've gotten grief about this, but it's just where I am right now. But I will let them win. I'll fight and fight. But ultimately, if they love it more than I think it bums out that part of the song for me, it's their name on the record forever. I just don't feel like that's...
Yeah.
It's a record of what it's going to be. And I don't know if 3% more to my taste is going to make a big difference. So I'm like, you know what? Go for it, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder for them to live with the compromise than you, as you say, because their name is on the record.
Yeah.
So if they look at that record and felt they compromised.
And is that worth that relationship to feel like you will never win any creative argument that we have? You know how I feel. And if we feel like we're listening to each other, that it's a democracy that if it's an independent artist or who's like paying for the record, I'm like, this is a service industry, babe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to do whatever you want. You know, I want this to like sound like it. And I'm usually trying to know on the front end a little more that I'm going to like it. So I don't often get into situations where I'm like, wow, what a stinker.
Have you ever had like these massive challenges in the studio thrown at you, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Yes.
Yeah.
Frequently. Totally. I mean, there's so much that can go wrong technically. There's just so many, like the Rube Goldberg of wires, and like there's just so many interconnected things that have to be right and updated and locked and all the things that just the technical thing. Sure.
No, you're good.
Just the technical thing can be a whole hurdle. So
I'm just inspired by people's stories of how they get out of these.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, totally.
You ever lost a take that was where you were like, where everyone's like, wow, that was amazing. Oh, it's gone.
Yep. Sure. It usually only takes one, and sometimes it's like I was training a new assistant the other day, and that happened, and I was like, okay, let's take it again. Like, what can you do in that moment? And you'll probably won't do that lightly again.
Yep.
You know, so if
Yep.
you I think that's so much of how you learn. Like you hope there's an easy way around painful experiential knowledge, and I have not found one yet. Other than just like doing it and being like, ouch, let's maybe before talk about that thing or whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
But like the only way out is through for me. Like,
Yep.
because it's a small town, a small industry. And I don't want to like screw people over personally. It doesn't feel good. So even if it's uncomfortable, I usually like to talk it out as much as we can. And, just like try to salvage what we can. And I've actually been inspired by some of my engineer friends who are like, sometimes you have to like walk away and be like, I think you need to finish it with this person, because now you see, talking about the phases of production process, sometimes you hit a different phase and it's like, oh, you want to slam on the brakes right now and we need to get this out. Rather than us fighting for a long time, why don't we figure out if you can like pay this other person to get niche with you and like, or whatever you want to do. And so trying to just like find a way through and be committed to not being a jerk in the meantime is like really hard sometimes, but I try. And as my grandmother used to say, God loves a try.
Nice. Okay, we're just about out of time. Maybe do really quick fire. What do you think?
Yeah. I love the quick fire.
So the quick fire is basically we'll just call out a few things from music, audio. First thing that comes to mind.
Okay,
could be a piece of gear, could be a philosophy. Doesn't have to be super quick fire, depending on your next your next. But yeah.
I'm gonna throw a curveball. Studio lighting.
Ooh, non-overhead, indirect. I was raised on a strict like lamp. When company comes over, you turn on the lamps. That's part of my kid job. I would turn over. So I was trained on that. And it's definitely, I've got like an organic mode, daytime mode, and then an evening future mode. So sometimes you want the colors, the LEDs, and sometimes you need like breezy, I'm in the natural world.
Nice.
But very important. I would tag that.
Would you prefer like basically pretty dark or bright and airy? If it was just you and it was like...
Probably dark.
Yeah.
I'm fairly good. If it's just me and I'm going to go in, I want to go in.
Yeah.
Spelunking, I'll see you in as much time as I can have down here.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if that comes from like live music and things. When you're a kid, you're most like first time you go to a gig, it's like the most visceral experience. So loud, crazy lights, and you go, oh wow, I didn't know music. Oh, this is music. So maybe there's a bit of there's something about the dark.
But you're alone at the party in this scenario, which is fine with me. I can vibe. The focus too of like, my brain's thinking of a million things at one time. So like anything that can help me focus, whether it's sensory or whatever, is good for me. Of like, I'm going to lock the doors and that's easy to do when you're looking at the doll and alone. So it's actually more rare at this moment that I get to do it. It feels like indulgent to go into a session creatively for such a long period of time, but like that's the dream.
Nice. Vocals?
The first thing I think of is the chain that I have just used a lot at Moxie, which is 47. I've got the Flea 47, and I've got the Rupert Neve Designs 5088 at Moxie, and I love it. And I just know where I can dial that in, and it's like buttery, and the top end isn't too sharp, and it's like even getting like a little more bottom than advisable, which is now on tape. Like it's nice to do on that vocal because it doesn't get woofy, but all of a sudden, yes, I can cut all the lows, but also if you want it to take up a bunch of space in the mix, all of a sudden you have a non-woofy, big-bodied vocal, which is really fun to be able to have that much EQ range on the console. And then the compression, honestly, I take it off more. I'm always feel like I should put it on. I put it on, and then I'm like, I can hear it. I don't want to hear it forever. Like I'd rather do it later or something.
Absolutely. It's easier to add later than try and take it out later, right?
Yeah, that's my preference for sure.
What about reverb?
Yes, please.
Lots of it.
I've got a Veracity, which is just like celestial and heavenly and all those things. But it comes with the baggage of outboard. So on the fly, I like Fab Filter, the reverb.
Yeah.
I love the really
Pro R.
Yeah, Pro
So
R,
good.
totally. I love turning them like going very large room, like way, and make them really big, but turning the decay and the send way down. So you're getting like there's hardly any decay, but it's just like the essence of it. And for some reason, I like that as almost a second reverb that puts the whole track or a bunch of things in a very delicate hand-blown snow globe.
Yeah.
Where the mix can be a second snow globe.
Just sort of drifts off forever.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Slow motion fall.
Yeah. Monitors or speakers?
Yeah, as many as possible is the first thing that comes to mind, just because of reality, trying to get what this sounds like in reality. And of course, like having things you trust. I love the Atom AX7s really sound like, I feel like we're really reliable. And next to, especially, I've got the Atomic 610s, and they feel like that children's toy that you like expand, and you can like, it hinges and it becomes like 4 times its size, and you can like see inside it. You know what I'm talking about? We got one. One. I'll show you later.
Okay.
And then you can squish it back, or not squish, but like you can hinge it back, and it becomes
like
a compact ball.
Stretch Armstrong type thing.
Same capability, but different mechanics.
Okay.
But this like
Getting technical
expands,
now.
and you can see through it. And I feel like having those back to back is exactly what that does, because like the 610s are like the Atomics are like some people say kind of like big NS10s, or nice to listen to NS10s because they're revealing, they're accurate. Whenever that ball expands, I can see every little nook and cranny. But when I go back to the Atoms, I'm also get a sense of what the consumer is going to hear while still being in this kind of like studio-y hi-fi thing.
Yeah.
But those are equally, I want to keep in touch with both of those things.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit's hole. And then like getting in like AirPods and getting in the car and having my headphones set up where I can check 2 different sets and having that all kind of like pre-laid out so I can be like, okay, yeah, this is true. And for some reason, this is reading like that. I can move quickly on.
It's that quick translation, and like you're kind of, you're not going in a rabbit hole. You have a sense of where the mix should be, but you're just kind of going, okay, I need to maybe look at that, figure that out.
Yes, and I know enough about my brain that I need a water bug over that moment because I can really like get in my head about the mix. That's late in the game. You're getting ready to send it off. It feels like it matters so much when I'm finishing mixes for a record that I produce or something like that. So I know that about myself now. I need to like set myself up to win. I always think like that version is going to be like a 4-year-old that I'm taking to the doctor's office for 4 hours. I need to bring plastic keys for them. So I'm going to like know in advance that I get, I get sensitive in that moment and I need extra things around me that are going to help me in that moment. So now as I'm setting up the studio, I can be like, okay, give her 2 headphones that are different. Let her take a walk. I like make sure I don't mix too long in a row, which is good physically anyway. Yep. But left to my own devices, I probably would. Like the 4-year-old is going to like stay in there for 15 hours and just like freak out about the whole thing. So I'm like, let's not. Let's also choose healthier ways. Make better decisions.
Perfect. Cool. Let's call it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if you want to check out, we're going to put links to Moxie and some of Jordan's discography and so on in the description. Recommend everybody goes and listens to that Working Class Audio podcast as well, the Tape Up interview. Lots of good stuff in there. Thank you to Station West for having us. Amazing room here in Berry Hill. Please like, subscribe, etc. and so on, and we'll see you next time.